Previously on Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. I clenched at one of those 50,000 yen t-shirts I only bought because it matched hers. 50,000 yen for this? It wasn't just 50,000 yen, you dummy. This lifestyle was the price of that? And I was attracted to someone like her? Yeah, you were. I held the t-shirt against my face and sobbed. I felt miserable and ashamed, but all I could do was cry. Deep down, I realized I had wasted my life on meaningless things. As I continued sobbing, I pressed the play button on the answering machine once more.
あー、キラ。友達が金貸せるかもって言ってるけど、どうする？利子ちょっと高いけど。
KC スポーツクラブですが、会費が3ヶ月分未納となりましたため、大会手続きを取らせていただきました。未納分につきましては、
加賀大学事務局ですが、次期履修予定表が未提出になっています。至急大学へ。
居酒屋100万石の店長やけど、お前もう来んでええわ。無断欠勤はうちは速攻でクビなんや。てめえ、世間を舐めたらあかんで。
Do your best, Akira. Mom's words echoed inside my ears. Mom, I can't go back now. And I can't go forward either. Thinking that and feeling completely helpless, I stepped outside for the first time in ages and felt the raindrops strike me. And when I came to my senses, I was on the internet, and I had reached a specific site. Did you see the issue of the Weekly 7? It mentions an occult spot called Hinamizawa Village. I don't think they'd find us in a place like that. What do you think? I've read the Weekly 7. Sounds good. It mentioned the gas disaster happened in June, so there should be even fewer people around then. How about the second Monday in June? If you can, I'm sure the weather will be nice. There's Chiaki. I hope it'll go well this time. Is it okay to do this with just 3 people? Somewhere out there, I felt something resembling human warmth. And when I noticed that, I wrote too. Seriously. Sure, it's nice weather. What's so great about that? This is a vacant area without any people nearby. That's probably the worst place to die. And meet on the other side? Still too soon for me! And after everyone fell asleep, I climbed out of the car alone. Outside, the sunset shined down on the thick gray clouds in the sky. And in no time, the surrounding area was covered in darkness. Impossible to tell right from left. But all I could think about was tightly holding the property I took from Chiaki-san as I ran down the pitch black mountain road.
でも、車を出て、すぐに雨が降ってきて、道がぬかるんで、何度も転んで、そして、真っ暗闇を駆け回っているうちに、道に迷ってしまったんです。
And then eventually, you ran into Mion. As Miyuki-chan pushed Towada-san aside, she reached into the bedding and hit something. Then, she turned to look at the girl for a moment, before pulling out the comforter. The next moment, hanging there, something fell out of the space between the futons And it was a pale human hand?
なんだよこれ
Yuki-chan grabbed the hand and pulled without a second thought. Given its position, it required an incredible amount of force to pull it out. Before long, I heard the owner of that hand tumbling down to the floor.
こいつ
そんな
His face. It was Kurosawa, the man who was sleeping here just a little while ago.
黒沢匠の死体がここにあることをさ。
は
Otobe and I both raised our voices in surprise. Then, Towada-san emphatically gasped and opened her eyes wide in shock.
どうなんだい？正直に言ってみな。
そんなわけないでしょ。匠くんがいなくなって、私
隠し事はやめにしようってみんなでさっき話し合ったじゃないか。
冗談はやめてください。勝手に決めつけたこと言わないでよ。
Towada-san shouted emotionally and stared with determination. However, her gaze quickly fell to the floor, as if repelled.
知ってたんだろ？だから見られたくなかったんじゃないのかい？
I thought desperately about what Miyuki-chan said as I repeated her words back to her. Until I finally realized.
ちょっと待てよ。その時間なら俺たちがここへ来る前じゃないか。
How the hell can that be, though? We saw him alive and sleeping, didn't we?
ですね。
それは変ですよ。だって見てますよ僕たち。ねえ荒川さん、そうでしょ。ここで黒沢さん酔いつぶれて寝てたじゃないですか。
Unless you're saying he was dead that entire time.
だから
Otobe was so alarmed by my hysterical exclamation that he turned and looked me straight in the eyes.
どうしたんですか？
もしかしてその時黒沢はもう
A horrifying thought came rushing out. Kurosawa, who was supposedly sleeping in the corner of the room after heavy drinking, was in fact already dead? If that's the case, then there's only one possibility.
十和田さん、あんた
Dejectedly, Towada-san's eyes were open wide as she stared at the rope. And eventually, she let out a dry laugh. Then, she leaned her back against the wall while muttering to herself.
参ったな。こんなところで探偵みたいな人たちと一緒になっちゃうなんて。せっかくこんな誰も来そうにない場所まで足を運んだってのに。
十和田さん、
あと少しで平穏な生活を取り戻すことができたのに。残念。
Towada-san looked down at Kurosawa's corpse with cold eyes as she dispassionately spoke. She was crying over Kurosawa just a moment ago, but her cold, hard tone made clear that was just an act. Just as Miyuki-chan and Sonozaki-san had realized, that crying earlier was an utter lie. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of the Higurashi When They Cry console arcs. So, Towada, why did you kidnap the Prime Minister? Why did you eat all my popcorn when you, me, and Kurosawa went to your house to go watch John Carpenter's The Thing? Why won't you tell me where the bomb is? But perhaps most importantly, why did you kill Kurosawa and lie to us about it? I want answers! No, seriously, why'd you kill him?
ひょっとしてその黒沢はあんたを裏切ったりしたのか？浮気とか嘘とか、それが許せなかったってことなのか？
いいえ。匠くんはそんなことしませんよ。
You sure he didn't do anything unforgivable? Because he totally, from what little I've seen of him, he does strike me as the type who would eat all your popcorn.
ただ、私が匠くんのこと消してしまいたかっただけなんです。
決して。
He wasn't unfaithful. He didn't lie to you about anything. He didn't do anything unforgivable. You just wanted to get rid of him. That can't be the only reason. I remember the tip where I seen you with him. He seemed awfully cold and distant. Did the relationship just sour over time or something?
ええ、それだけです。だって私、匠くんのこと大好きだったから。
おかしいじゃねえか。好きだったんならどうして殺したりしたんだよ。
匠くんとはもう付き合い始めて7年近くになるんです。知り合ったのは大学に入ってすぐの頃でした。
Towada-san raised her head and gazed off in the distance. That moment, an image emerged from the back of her eyelids. A little old-school building, not far from the city center. A massive green lawn was visible from the fourth floor of the school building. Our class was in the very last classroom on the far end of the building. I finally got accepted into the college I had been hoping to attend, so everything was looking bright. But things were a bit difficult for me, because I was a year younger than my classmates. I started to develop an inferiority complex about it. And after enrolling, I spent most of my time alone. Wouldn't the fact that you're a year younger than all your other classmates be an indication that you're smarter than them? That you're a bit smarter than them despite being younger? If anything, if anything, you should develop a superiority complex in that case.
なあ、十和田さん、今度の日曜、よかったらライブ聞きに来ない？
One day, a male classmate spoke to me for the very first time. His smooth hair was a bit disheveled. His clothes were a bit sloppy, like he didn't try hard to dress well. But even though I normally would have found that detail unappealing, it actually gave me a good feeling. He was still quite young and had a youthful look on his face. The thing about him I found most attractive was his eyes. Takumi-kun's eyes sparkled. They seemed to radiate all the enjoyment filling his heart.
ライブ？
そう、ライブ。十和田さん、音楽は好き？
うん。誰のライブなの？
俺だよ、俺。
Oh.
決まってるじゃん。
え？
俺、バンドやってんだよね。実は曲も自作でさ、なかなかの自信作なんだ。
Honestly, I was totally shocked. I didn't have any special skills of my own, so for someone to be able to pick up music while also studying for school, I felt like he was from a totally different world. Not just a celebrity, but a divine being. He even did his own composition and spoke to people to convince them to attend his concerts. That's not something you can do without a great deal of confidence in your skills. And a person with such unprecedented talent was standing directly in front of me, right now. So I was completely starstruck. It was a wonderful feeling.
なあ、どうかな。時間があればでいいんだけど。
I was so stunned by the son's situation that I couldn't find the words. Perhaps due to that, his voice suddenly grew uneasy. After seeing that, I understood. Of course, this guy was putting on a brave face for my sake. All just for me, the one who stuck out in our class.
いいの？私、あんまり音楽わからないけど。
いいよ、もちろん。絶対損させないから。約束する。
As soon as I responded that it was okay, he put on a huge, bright smile. Honestly, he was like a child. But I found that innocence wonderful from the bottom of my heart.
じゃあ、どこでやるのかな？場所教えてくれる？
これ、チケットとフライヤー。お金なんていらない。無料でいい。ただ。じゃあ、約束。待ってるからさ。
Takumi-kun wrapped his little finger around my little finger, as he promised that with a beaming smile on his face. Then he ran out of the classroom. The warmth of his touch still lingered in my little finger. That was maybe the first time in my entire life locking fingers with a boy. My heart was beating fast. Apologize for the little bits of coughing I may end up doing, or clearing my throat I'll be doing throughout this video. I'm recovering from some sickness I've been dealing with for the past couple weeks. It didn't take much time after that before we got together. Since we were in the same class, we were always together. The two of us went to all sorts of places together every week, and I went to see all his concerts. He, Takumi Kurosawa-kun, was playing the guitar, and was fortunate enough to have a bunch of fans. Fangirls would come to the concert and stare longingly at Takumi-kun. There were so many girls for Takumi-kun to choose from, and they were always cheering for him. But even so, Takumi-kun's eyes were always on me. I was the one he cherished most, and that made me so happy. It was a blessing.
俺さ、大学出たら本気でメジャー行こうと思ってんだよね。
メジャー？
プロになりたいんだ。無謀ってバカにされるかもしんねえけどさ、俺、音楽で飯食っていきたいって思ってんだよね。
Given what I remember from the tip, and the general living conditions you guys were in before arriving in Hinamizawa, I think I can already safely conclude that your musical aspirations didn't ultimately go anywhere in the end. Unfortunately for you. Indeed, I did think it a bit reckless. Takumi-kun's music was quite wonderful, and he certainly was talented. But is he talented enough? Again, clearly not. I already answered my own question just a minute ago. But going pro is a completely different story. Plenty of talented people put out all their passion, expertise, and hard work striving for it. But only a handful of people ever make it onto the stage. And even if that major debut did come to fruition, he was able to live off of it, there'd still be fierce competition waiting for him every single day. Plus, this isn't the sort of world where you're rewarded simply because you put in a lot of effort. After all, everyone else is working hard too, naturally. Could he really make his dreams come true in this callous, ruthless world?
私、よくわかんないけど、プロになるのって大変なんじゃない？大丈夫なの？
まあね。でも、ガキの頃から書き溜めた詩がいっぱいあるからさ。あとはそれに曲つけるだけなんだ。結構自信作なんだぜ。八重もいいって言ってくれただろ？
うん。
まあ、確かにしばらくはバイトで生活費を稼ぐ生活になると思うけど、八重がそばにいてくれて、音楽だけやって暮らしていけたら、 俺は幸せなんだ。他には何にも望まない。だから頑張れると思うんだ。
I enjoyed hearing Takumi-kun talk about his dreams. Somehow, it felt different from anyone else. He wasn't swayed by the whims of the world. Takumi-kun had his own values, and he decided for himself how he wanted to live. I was confident that he would be able to manage. He's Takumi-kun. Surely he'll be able to make his dreams come true. At least, I thought so. Takumi-kun's eyes glittered and sparkled any time he told me about his future ambitions. If we ever move in together, I want to get a dachshund. Dachshund? I'd like to live near a big park and try doing the radio exercises together every morning, even as we grow old. I wanted to play a concert at the Budokan and propose to you right after finishing my best song. He was seriously considering these things, laughing like a child all the while. But despite that, I was feeling the opposite. I was quite anxious. If he really does make it a big hit and become a celebrity, he'll be surrounded by fans and other stars. If that were to happen, would Takumi-kun's feelings for me stay the same? I believe that he loves me very much right now, but as his position changes, his perspective will change, and his values along with it. When that happens, will I be able to follow him? Or will he leave me behind? That dreadful future haunted my thoughts, sometimes even my dreams. And so, there came a day when I asked him about it.
ねえ、匠くん。もし、世界がとっても大変な状況になって、音楽か私か、どっちかしか選べないってなったら、どうする？
なんだよそれ。どういう意味？
ちょっとね。テレビでそんな話、昨日やってたから。
That was a lie, of course. It truly was a ridiculous, nonsensical question. But Takumi-kun smiled like usual. And without hesitation, he gave me an answer with a serious look on his face.
大変な状況ってのがどんなのかよくわかんねえけど、もしも音楽か八重かを選べって言われたら、俺は間違いなく八重を選ぶよ。
本当に？
当然だろ。音楽はなくても生きていけるけど、八重のいない生活は正直想像したくもないからさ。
匠くん。
I was elated. He wasn't just saying that. It felt like he truly meant it. I was deeply moved. I always felt warm and happy when I was with Takumi-kun. Just being around him made me feel at ease.
匠くん。大好き。
バカ。俺はお前が俺を思ってるよりも、もっともっとお前のことが好きだぜ。
そんなことないよ。私だって。
I started to speak up, but Takumi-kun kissed me. Every single day was packed with that sweet sentiment. Those 4 years were absolutely delightful. I graduated from college and got a job doing clerical work for a small trading company. It was a company I had never heard of, and it didn't have very many employees, but the company was doing solid business. Takumi-kun, on the other hand, couldn't find a job anywhere. Naturally, he'd always say he was chasing his dream. Takumi-kun's life hadn't changed much since his college days. He sincerely wanted to concentrate all his strength on his music career. His life wasn't all that different. Just that time he spent in lectures was replaced with a part-time job. The band members' faces didn't change either. Just like in our college days, I attend Takumi-kun's concerts every week. So, our relationship never really settled down. Before long, several years had passed. The people around us started getting married and skipping the band to take care of their kids. Takumi-kun's band members started giving up on the band, one after another. All my friends were around the same age got their dose of reality and started walking through life with their feet on the ground.
匠くん、大丈夫？最近なんだか元気なくない？
大丈夫だよ。ここんとこバイトが忙しくて、あんま寝てないんだ。
Although Takumi-kun said as much, I could tell he was feeling irritated. He was having trouble replacing his missing band members recently, and he was struggling to find the money to open a studio or put on any concerts. No, maybe I was the one getting impatient. Our love hadn't changed much since the old days, but honestly, I was starting to worry if we could really keep things the way they were. I mean, whenever I talked to him, my anxiety about the future still nagged at my heart, smoldering like an old flame.
悪い。お前に心配かけてごめんな。今はこんなだけど、きっともうすぐ盛り返せる。いや、してみせるさ。実はレコード会社のプロデューサーがこの前会いたいって言ってくれて。
Takumi-kun seemed so happy when he was talking about things back then. But I was only half listening to him, because I'd already heard that story many times before. He said it all the time. I didn't mean to make you worry. Something about those words felt out of place, because unlike in the past, something started to feel cold deep inside my heart. Honestly, I might not have been worried that Takumi-kun was feeling down. Maybe somewhere deep down, I was trying to use his lethargy as an excuse to tell him to set aside his dreams and live a steady lifestyle. Our college friends were getting ready to buy condos, build houses, and start to have children. And the feeling that it's not so easy to make your dreams come true was finally starting to sink in. Takumi-kun probably felt the same way. So one day, when I came back from work...
ねえ、匠くん、私たち一緒に暮らそうよ。
え？
I was the one to suggest it. But the suggestion wasn't born from kindness or love. By being just a little closer to him, I could set aside my helpless impatience, my frustrations, my anxiety about the future. I could fill all the holes in my heart.
二人で暮らせば生活費も半分で済むし、ちゃんと自炊すればお金だって節約できるよ。その分を音楽活動に使っていけば、心配も少しは軽くなると思うから。
いいのか？それって八重、
いいの。私がそうしたいだけなんだから。
八重。
Takumi-kun didn't answer right away. That seemed natural. Regardless of how I felt about it, I'd be formally agreeing to cover part of his expenses. No, perhaps almost all of them. But I had already decided, and I was fine with it.
匠くんは私にできないものを持っている。私なら目指すどころか思い立つこともできないすごい才能がある。だから私は応援したいの。私一人では絶対見ることのできない世界。あなたのそばで少しでも一緒に見ることができたら。
ダメだなんて。
きっと叶う。大丈夫だよ。私だけは信じてる。だから、匠くんのことも信じさせて。あなたが今見ている素敵な 夢の世界を。
八重。
Then, Takumi-kun hugged me so tight that it hurt. And cried. Just a little. Despite the pain in my arms. Despite the burning of those teardrops. I felt happy. Yes, I truly did feel happy. And the guilt of the cold, sinful emotions I had begun to embrace felt just a little bit lighter. And then, we started living together. There were all sorts of problems that came from the two of us living together, and it was more difficult than I thought. But that was all blown away by the tremendous joy I got out of it. Really, amazingly so. Looking back on it, I was like a child. Still, Takumi-kun was always so kind. On paydays, he would always bring home my favorite cake. He was happy to help out with the cooking and laundry. When I came home tired after a tedious day at work, he'd listen to my stories and comfort me, encourage me. Just remembering those days brings a tear to my eye. We were so full of love. Those days were irreplaceable. Really, there was no mistaking that. It was a fact.
俺、八重に迷惑はかけたくないからさ。お互い、不満があったらちゃんと口に出して言おうな。
うん。
八重、俺がメジャーデビューした時、きっと隣にいてくれるよな。
当然でしょ。私が匠くんのファン第1号なんだからね。
Every time I said that, a dull pain coursed through my chest. I responded that way automatically, but another part of myself was gradually beginning to feel otherwise. That other me watched Takumi-kun with cold eyes as he continued dreaming of making his major debut. I hated that part of myself. So, I carefully chose my words to hide it.
私、応援してるもん。夢を追ってる匠くんのこと、応援してるよ。だって、匠くんのこと大好きだもん。
八重が信じてくれているから、俺、頑張ろうって思えるんだ。お前がいるから頑張れる。八重、いつもありがとう。愛してる。
If there's still one small regret still inside me now, it's that I wish I had believed in him more. In him, in our love, and in myself. Love and dreams were all we had, but I didn't need anything more to be happy. If I could have gone on living, bathed in that warm fantasy, treasuring that precious, gentle time, maybe this outcome wouldn't have transpired. So, if I'm understanding if I'm understanding everything right and accurately seeing where this story is heading, seems to me like this is just a case of a young passionate couple simply falling out of love with each other, and reality just giving you both a long, slow, painful check. Only instead of just, I don't know, breaking up with him or something like that, once you got too impatient with his lack of ability to make his dreams a reality, his unwillingness to just simply settle down with you and tie the knot once and for all, while you guys were still relatively young. Instead of doing any of that, You just kill him. But I have a feeling you're not done with your story yet, so I think I should just reserve judgment until I'm certain I've heard everything. One of the light bulbs burned out in this dimly lit assembly hall. Towada briefly paused her story to gently gaze down at Kurosawa's face. When I glanced at my watch, the time was now 3 a.m.
幸せそうだったのに、どうしてこんなことに。
そんな甘い日々は長くは続かなかったから。匠くん、変わっちゃったんですよ。
I would argue you did too. Towada shook her head self-derisively. One day, I came home from work to find Takumi-kun skipping work and drinking alcohol.
どうしたの？今日、バイトは？
休み。
He spoke like he was flinging the words at me. Of course, there was no reason for him to suddenly take a day off. It's good to get a little time off, but he didn't have the vacation time to spare.
何か嫌なことがあったのかな？
I was rather tired after work that evening, but I wanted Takumi-kun to feel better, so I ran to the supermarket and prepared a feast. But Takumi-kun didn't say another word. I wondered what happened, but in the end, he never told me. If I had to guess, reality fully hit him at this point, and it crushed him. Namely, the reality that he was never going to achieve his dreams. Even though just a few weeks earlier, he would have grumbled out a few complaints about what was bothering him, and then would have cheered up at least a little once he got off his chest.
俺、八重に迷惑はかけたくないからさ。お互い、不満があったら、ちゃんと口に出して言おうな。
The words he said earlier came back to me. Actually, I just thought of something. Maybe he noticed you changing, and that you weren't being honest with him about how you really felt about anything the two of you were doing, and him chasing his dreams, all that stuff. You just weren't being honest with him, and at some point he could just sense it, pick up on it. And he would give you these little invitations to just open up to him, but you never do. And maybe it just weighed on him. Till eventually he just stopped caring, gave up. Something like that. I mean, given by the narration that you've given me so far, you were the one that was clearly changing first before he did. You were the one you were the one that grew cold before him. The words he'd said earlier came back to me. That was the first time Takumi-kun ever broke a promise to me. Takumi-kun didn't go to his part-time job the next day, or the day after. With Takumi-kun not working, he couldn't pay the monthly rent. So I paid it in his place. After that day, I made every rent payment myself. Takumi-kun never said anything about it. He didn't say anything. Did you ask him up front? At any point? Before long, I started paying the water and electric bills, and even covered the cost of our meals. Takumi-kun would wake up around noon to work on his composition and write lyrics. That was enough to keep me convinced. I was able to encourage myself to keep working hard. But one day, the song he wrote was so disconnected, I couldn't even bring myself to listen to it. Unfortunately, I let a few words slip out. What is this? It's weird. I never imagined how much that one statement could trample his motivation and self-esteem. As a result, he never wrote any more songs after that. He simply spent all day drinking alcohol. I, on the other hand, spent every day struggling to keep up with my office work. It wasn't fun at all. I smiled even when I didn't want to around superiors and coworkers. And the stress of communicating with junior colleagues piled up. While I continued living that lifestyle, Takumi-kun was living an easygoing lifestyle more akin to retirement. Over time, I gradually started feeling stressed around him too.
ねえ、たくみくん。働かないの？
働くよ。今、ちょっと疲れてんだ。
そう。
いろいろ世話になってて悪いな。近いうちに絶対、八重も驚くようないい曲を作ってみせるからさ。
うん、いいの。楽しみにしてるから。
I was annoyed with myself for saying that's good. I really should have said that's not good at all. And I thought about sharing my honest feelings of him. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. And I'm starting to think that was the source of your relationship's downfall right there. Takumi-kun was doing his best to make his dreams come true. So I have to support him. Are you, though? Were you actually supporting him at this point? I have to work harder. I don't mean just physically, like paying the bills or stuff like that. I'm talking about emotionally. Because it seemed to me you're going by how that one little remark you made about that one song of his seemed to just kill his motivation. Seemed to me like he certainly felt like as though you weren't actually supporting him then. Your opinion mattered to him. Otherwise, why would he have asked for it? I have to work harder. I need to be more patient. Right. As long as I can endure this. If I love Takumi-kun, I have to endure this. But it was gradually getting hard to maintain this lifestyle. That much was a fact. More and more friends were getting married and having children. Even when I spoke with them, it was difficult to maintain a conversation. I couldn't help but envy our friends for having families and happy lives. So I gradually fell out of touch with those friends and started feeling really lonely. If things stayed the way they were with Takumi-kun, having a child would be rather difficult. It took a tremendous amount of work and my entire salary to take care of Takumi-kun, so raising a child on top of that was absolutely impossible. It was heartbreaking. But it must be even more painful for Takumi-kun. None of his hard work is ever recognized, even after doing so much to make his dreams come true. All that struggling, only to fail. He must be tormented by that frustration every single day. So, these hardships I'm enduring are no big deal. No big deal. Really, though? Is Takumi-kun really in that much pain? If you're seriously asking this question, I think it's pretty obvious to me that you can't really see it. After all, he spends all day sleeping and lazing about, doesn't he? He's not even writing songs anymore. Well, mainly because of you. His skills have gone dull. His instruments have fallen out of tune. And now, they're collecting dust in the corner of the room, aren't they? How is that difficult? How is that painful? And all the while, I've been gritting my teeth and doing my best to endure it. Working until my body felt heavy every single day. At a job that wasn't what I had hoped it would be. All for Takumi-kun's sake. Does Takumi-kun not understand how much I'm suffering? Well, you certainly don't seem to understand how much he's suffering, so why don't you take your what about me attitude and shove it where the sun don't shine? Does he truly comprehend how desperately I've worked to endure it? It's not normal. It's unfair. Why? Why do I alone need to be patient when Takumi-kun is off doing whatever he likes? How much longer do I have to put up with this? Until tomorrow? The next day? Another year? Or maybe forever? In the meantime, my birthday had arrived. My legs felt heavy. Until now, Takumi-kun and I would always go out to eat together. But I couldn't expect that to continue, Takumi-kun not bringing in any income. But I didn't have the heart to invite him out to eat, even to celebrate my own birthday. Still, there was also something unpleasant about needing to head home and prepare dinner on such a special day. In the end, I had to work overtime that day, then went straight home. I had forgotten it was my birthday. And I'm sure Takumi-kun forgot too. No. I was just pretending to forget.
ただいま。
When I came home, Takumi-kun was in his room like usual. But something about him looked different. Though I expected him to be laying about, he was sitting nicely in the middle of the room, looking straight at me.
遅かったな。
Takumi-kun looked up with a stagnant look in his eyes. And he looked a bit drunk, like he'd been drinking here alone.
ごめん、残業してて。あ、すぐ夕飯にするね。今日は遅かったから、あり合わせしか残ってないけど。
やえ。
何？
嘘つくなよ。
え？
The next moment, Takumi-kun rose to his feet and harshly grabbed me by the shoulders.
どうしたの、匠くん。
どうしたもこうしたもねえだろ。なんで俺に嘘つくんだよ。
嘘なんてついてないよ。
Yes, you are.
匠くん、何を言ってるの？
だって今日、お前の誕生日じゃんか。
あ。
He remembered. That realization made me a bit happy. However, when I saw the anger in Takumi-kun's eyes, that cheerful feeling shattered in the blink of an eye.
残業なんて嘘なんだろ。お前、今までどこかに行ってたんだろ。
言ってないよ。一体どこに行くっていうの？
お前、誰かと会ってたんだろ。俺が金ないからって、他の男に祝ってもらってたんだろ。
はあ？そんなはずないじゃない。何言ってるのよ、匠くん。
Pressured by his baseless suspicion, I unconsciously donned a rough tone. Well, here's the problem, Towada. Up until now, you just haven't really been honest with him about a lot of things relating to your feelings regarding his musical pursuits and probably numerous other aspects of the relationship that briefly alluded to but didn't really go into any detail. He knows that you're not being honest, and that you haven't been honest with him for a while about what's going on underneath the surface with you. So, since you won't really talk to him about this, I mean, can you really fault him for just letting his imagination run wild with possibilities as to why you're keeping your mouth shut? I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying he's right in his accusation here. I'm just saying that there's a reason there's a reason that he's acting this way, which you could probably realize if you just stopped and reflect on, well, whether you've actually been upfront with him about a lot of things up till this point. Me? Eating out with another man besides Takumi-kun? Ridiculous. There must be some misunderstanding. Yeah, there is. Would I have come home in such a melancholy mood if that were the case? Well, I mean, if the date went horribly, I mean, it could have, yeah. Just hearing Takumi-kun say that made me feel miserable. Even though I've been working so hard. I've been patiently enduring this, all for Takumi-kun's sake. How could he say that to me?
君こそ、
あ？
匠君こそ、どうなのよ。
No more. No more. I can't take any more.
なんだよ。どうって。
ねえ、匠君。私の友達が、匠君のことなんて言ってるか。匠君、紐って言われてるんだよ。
The expression in Takumi-kun's eyes changed. I finally calmed down after saying that, and immediately came to regret it. Good Lord. Did I actually say that? Yeah, you did.
お前、俺のことそんな風に見てたのかよ。
違う、私じゃなくて、友達が。
Tormented by guilt, I turned away to avoid looking Takumi-kun in the eyes. Right then, I felt a violent impact on my cheek. It was only after I stumbled back into the wall that I realized Takumi-kun had slapped me on the cheek. For the first time ever. Takumi-kun hit me for the very first time.
匠君？
ああ、悪かったな。そうやってお前、前からずっと俺のこと内心でバカにしてたんだろ。知ってるよ、そんな噂。この近所のババアどももそんなこと言ってたしな。お前なんかに言われなくたって知ってんだよ。お前の顔にもちゃんとそう書いてあるしな。
Then, Takumi-kun grabbed me by the hair and tossed me to the floor.
やめて！
Look, man, I understand where your frustration is coming from, but you don't want to do this. You really don't. Just as I started suffocating, I came to realize this was reality, and my field of view darkened over. thanks to the spine-chilling fear and despair.
俺のこと、俺の夢見守るとか言いながら、俺のことずっと見下してたんだろ。どうせ俺は社会のクズだよ。お前とはどうせ違うよ。俺がいると優越感に浸れるからいい気分だろう。
そんな。
I had never seen Takumi-kun like that before. Well, of course you didn't, because like you, he was also bottling things up until eventually you just said the one thing that just caused all that bottled up emotion to just explode out. I couldn't believe it. Takumi-kun was always so kind. So to hear him use such foul language, and to get violent with me, was incredibly shocking.
この野郎！てめえ！
やめて！
ちくしょう！バカにしやがって！ああ！
Oh Lord. Also, I think random comment, but I think it's kind of bad how I was able to audibly recognize half of those slurs, despite my my general comprehension of the Japanese language being worse than probably a toddler's. How much time passed after that? Before I knew it, I had fallen unconscious. And when I opened my eyes, Takumi-kun was there.
いや、ごめん。
As I lay there motionless, Takumi-kun looked toward me with the usual shine in his eyes.
たくみくん。
俺は。
Takumi seemed even more shocked than me that he resorted to violence. Probably was.
ごめん。いや、ごめん。俺、とんでもないことを。
Takumi-kun held me tight and looked me straight into my eyes.
ごめんな。怪我させて。ごめん。
たくみくん。
Takumi-kun pressed an ice pack against my swollen red cheek, with tears in his eyes.
ごめんな。
私こそ、すまないこと言って、ごめん。
Takumi-kun was crying as he hugged me. And I cried too, clinging to Takumi-kun. And then, as I was held in his arms, I had a thought. Was this really the person I fell in love with?
たくみくん。
But I was scared to admit that Takumi-kun had changed. So did you. I just wanted to forget everything, and I kept crying. That day was the beginning of hell.
それから、たくみくんはことあるごとに暴力を振るうようになったんです。機嫌が悪い時は、私の箸の持ち方が悪い。ただいまという声が小さい。洗濯物の畳み方が違う。そんなことで殴られました。私、入院までしたことがあるんですよ。あの日は急な残業があった日だった。珍しく匠くんが夕ご飯を作ってくれることになっていて、でも結局家に帰れたのは午後11時過ぎ。帰った途端ひっぱたかれて、そしてその後ずっと。
It was hard to imagine someone as calm and earnest as Towada living a life like that. Towada smiled a bit as she told her story, but it looked painful.
一度二度と続くと、だんだん歯止めが効かなくなってくるのかな。自分でもどうしたらいいかわからなかった。どっちが悪いのかすら考える余裕がなかった。それに、その時のことはちょっとした騒ぎになって。
Rumors were going around that Yae Towada was going through a rough patch in her personal life. And rumors spread in the neighborhood that she was supporting a man leading a hopeless lifestyle, which made it harder to do things around the neighborhood.
文字通り、身も心もボロボロでした。何が楽しかったのか、それすらもうわからなくなっていました。
僕なら逃げてます。そんな人、僕なら別れてます。
Are you really in any position to really comment on this sort of thing, considering your choice, how your romantic choices ended up screwing up your life, Otobe? I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit too harsh here. Towada forced a weak smile. Despite that, I think I still loved him. I felt like that was what her smile was trying to convey.
気が済むまで私を殴ると、匠くんは必ず泣きながら謝るんです。そうされると、私は許してしまう。
Until one day you couldn't.
だって、私の心の中には、昔の匠くんの記憶が残っているんだもん。
Takumi-kun's eyes didn't sparkle like before, but his gentle smile was just the same. He no longer focused on his dreams, and only ever drank, but those gentle times were still there. He'd greet me in a warm voice, welcome back. He'd say, "You must be tired," and gently rub my shoulders. No matter how bad the dishes I cooked turned out, no matter how poorly I seasoned them, he'd eat the whole thing like it was completely delicious. That was Takumi-kun I loved.
私だって苦しかったんです。もう、匠くんのそばにいるのはやめようって何度も思いました。家賃も払えない匠くんを放り出すのは忍びないけれど、私にだって私の人生があるはずだし、今目の前にいる匠くんは、もう私が愛した昔の匠くんとは違うって、そう自分に何度も言い聞かせた。だけど、ダメだったんです。どうしても昔の匠くんを重ねてしまう。匠くんと一緒にいてももう、愛しい昔の思い出を思い出すことしかできないのに。
それで、こいつを見捨てるわけにもいかず、どうしたらいいかわかんなくなって殺しちまったってわけか。
そんなんじゃないです。そんなんじゃ、ないんです。
You don't sound too certain about that. Towada-san racked her brain to squeeze the words out, while tightly clenching her chest. A line of tears fell from her eyes.
匠くんはきっと、私よりももっと苦しかったんだと思います。
Then she spit that out, the words practically bursting from her chest.
夢に見限られ、友達にも愛想をつかされ、匠くんがすがるべき人間は私しかいなかった。けれど、私もまた匠くんを切り捨てようとしていた。私、匠くんのこと、一思いに切り捨ててしまえばよかったんです。荷物も何も全部置いて、家を出てしまえばよかった。でも、そうはできなかった。未練がましく昔の思い出にすがりついて、殴られても殴られても、匠 匠くんのそばにいてしまった。その一方で、そばにいながら、昔とは変わってしまった匠くんを、憎んでいた。そんな私の心の葛藤は、匠くんは肌で感じていたと思います。
I'm sure he did. Towada said that's why, then took a deep breath before continuing.
だからもう、何もかも終わりにしたかったんです。楽しかった思い出も、それを塗りつぶしてあまりあるどうしようもなく辛い今も、匠くんさえいなくなれば全部消える。だから、匠くんを消したんです。死んだら、楽しかった思い出だけを心に残して、楽になれるって。
そんな身勝手な言い分が通るかよ。結局あんたは自分のやったことをなんだかんだと理由つけて正当化してるだけじゃないか。
Without thinking, I got fired up and shouted that. As far as I was concerned, Towada-san's explanation was nothing more than self-satisfaction. No matter what excuses she made, no matter how beautifully she portrayed it, murder is murder. Nothing more, nothing less. Still, she didn't look the least bit scared, like she was up until a moment ago. She spoke quietly with a cold expression, like the spirit possessing her had finally let go.
ええ、そうですよ。でも、それは私が自分で選んで、自分で決めた選択。そうすることがお互いにとって幸せだって、私は決めたから。自分で決めたことを、自分でやり遂げただけです。嫌なことは全部、消したんです。そして私は、実行に移した。
Right around that time, the Weekly 7 released the Occult Special Edition. She just happened to read it, and that was the turning point, where she finally formulated her plan.
観光地化されていなくて自然がいっぱいあってとってもいいところなんだって。こういうところに行ったら気分が変わるかも。一緒に行かない？
Hence the tip we
そんな
saw.
風に誘ったら匠くんは喜んでついてきました。あとは彼に睡眠薬を入れたお酒を飲ませて酔いつぶれたところを絞め殺しておしまい。でも、まさかこの無人の廃村で明かりを見つけてやってくる人がいるなんて、誤算でした。
As Towada-san told us her story, it seemed like deep down she made peace with her past. When she finished her long tale of the past, she looked relieved.
人殺しはいけないことだって知ってます。私だってしたくなんかなかったし、これからもしないと思います。でも、これが最善の選択だった。
I disagree.
他に方法なんて何もなかった。
There was another way, you just chose not to go with it. Because of your emotional attachments to who Kurosawa was in your heart. There was no other way for you because you made it so. It may sound a bit harsh, but that's just honestly how I see it.
なんて女だよ。
だって私今とっても清々しい気持ちなんですよ。それこそが私の選択が間違ってなんかいなかった証拠。
We'll see if you still feel that way a week from now, a month, hell, even a year.
無理をして自分の気持ちを押し隠していても結局不幸が積み重なるだけ。それに匠くんは苦しみから解放されて 私も過去を清算できた。新しい明日に向かって、これからまた生きていくことができる。
And what does that brand new tomorrow look like to you?
お互いにとって幸せな結末だった。そう思いませんか？
No, I don't think it is at all.
思うかバカ野郎。
I quickly took offense to Towada-san's defiant attitude. The woman standing before me with a docile expression was, in truth, a murderer wearing the skin of a human. Regardless of her past, regardless of the circumstances, murder isn't acceptable.
その話、どこまで本当なんだろうな。
Unspeakable disgust was swirling around inside my heart. No matter the context, no matter the situation, there is no righteous reason for depriving another human being of their life. I disagree with you there, but that's a whole nother discussion in and of itself that I'm not exactly in the mood to get into right now. She kept talking about what she did without a hint of remorse or discomfort.
だいたい人殺しの言うことなんて信用できねえよな。
Again, that's not this isn't me condoning what she did here. Not at all. I'm just simply saying here, I do think there are certain situations in life where it is acceptable to take the life of another human being. Like, for example, self-defense. Someone breaks into your home, they want to kill you because they want to take your stuff. And the only way you're going to get out of there with both your stuff and your life intact is to kill that person. I think in a situation like that, it's perfectly acceptable to do that sort of thing. But that's just one example that I can think of off the top of my head. Again, this is a pretty nuanced topic that I think warrants its own discussion. And I'm not really mentally prepared right now to have it.
暴力受けてたっていうのも本当のところはどうだか。本当はなんかもっと醜い理由があるんじゃねえの？死んじまった人間は何も語らねえからな。自分を美化してごまかすのは罪を受け止めて向かい合うよりずっと簡単なことだよな。
私、自分をごまかしてなんかいませんから。
Towada-san looked back at me with an expression that said she was completely done. It made me feel sick. Looking so proud, even after committing murder. Wasn't she just too weak to break up with Kurosawa? Well, the short answer is yes. Regardless of her reasons, they don't justify murder. Shouldn't Kurosawa have had the right to live?
真実なんてわかりませんよ。匠くんは死んでしまったんだし、わからないものはどうしようもないですよね。それに、最近じゃ匠くん、私とまともに話すこともなくなっていたから、聞いてもきっと何も言ってくれなかったと思います。
そんなのわかんねえだろ。
ええ、わかりませんよ。もうね。でもだったらあなたが同じ立場にいたら違うことができたんですか？
If you're asking me, yes, I would have.
私は私にできる最善のことをしたんです。この選択に後悔はありませんよ。
よくもまあ抜け抜けと。
十和田さん。
The next moment, before I could say anything more, Miyuki-chan opened her mouth. Finally, someone else decides to interject.
もう一度だけ確認するわ。それ、本心で言ってるのね。
はい。
Towada-san spoke resolutely. Her eyes were as clear as the blue summer sky. Miyuki-chan, on the other hand, had a chilling glimmer in her eyes, like an intense snowstorm.
じゃあ、あんたは否定したわけだ。好きな人と過ごしてきた楽しい時間を、思い出を、存在を。いえ、それだけじゃない。その人と出会ってしまった偶然さえ、あんたは否定したんだ。 まるで、最初っから全て間違っていたかのように。
She's not wrong when you frame it like that. Miyuki-chan's scathing words caused Towada-san's ample smile to siphon in an instant. In that moment, Miyuki-chan looked angry. Her face was bursting with intense fury from the bottom of her heart.
さっきの話を聞いていて思ったんだけど、あなた、最初から最後まで自分の主張ばかりよね。もしくは思い込み。相手がどう思ってどう感じていたかなんて全然聞こうともしてない。
Thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed that.
自分の勝手な価値観で相手の気持ちを邪推してあれこれ考えて自分の判断だけで良かれと思う道を選んでる。そして相手にも強制してる。
何言うんですか。強制なんてしてません。我慢を強いていたのはむしろ。
彼は頼んだの？あなたに我慢してくれって頼んだの。一緒に暮らしてくれ、生活費を払ってくれ、面倒を見てくれ、黙って殴られてくれ。
黙って。
それって結局全部あなたが望んで、あなたから彼にそうさせたのよね。だから彼に対してその文句や不満を言って嫌われたりしたら、彼は自分を必要としなくなって手元から離れていくかもしれない。実際にそうならなくても、その可能性を考えるだけで怖かった。まだわからない？あなたはどんなに辛くても彼の一番の理解者である自分でいたかった。そして我慢をし続けている自分の崇高さによって彼を自分のそばに縛り付けておくことで自分の欲求を満たしていただけなのよ。
That's right. No matter how she worded it, she was just trying to justify her actions. What Towada-san told us was, to put it bluntly, the epitome of self-satisfaction. Thinking by yourself, making your own decisions, and constantly running away from confronting the problem in its truest sense. All in the world of your own invention. That was the logic of cowards.
でも、だんだんそれにも飽きてきた。だからといって、自分以外の誰かに渡すのも嫌だった。その結果が、この犯行よ。あなたが望んだ未来は、彼をペットのように飼って、独り占めにして、永久に誰にも見つからない場所に隠しておくことだった。彼の気持ちなんかお構いもなしに、死後も思い出の中で自分だけのものに。
Struck a nerve, clearly. Towada-san roared, like she was coughing up blood. Otobe and I immediately froze in place. Miyuki-chan was standing directly in front of Towada-san, bearing the brunt of Towada-san's outburst and hateful glare.
いけない！そう思っちゃいけないの！そうよ。私と彼は最初から価値観がまるで違ってた。私は普通の幸せが欲しくて、匠くんは一か八かの栄光を求めて、現実にしか生きられない私と、一瞬のチャンスにかけることができる匠くん。釣り合うわけがない。最初から無理と矛盾だらけだったのよ。私たちは。
Towada-san's composed smile vanished as she continued shouting. This was the true voice inside her heart.
でも好きだった。本気で愛していたのよ。心の底から。だけど、私の望む暮らしは、どこにでもありふれた普通の生活だった。赤ちゃんを作って、育てて。庭付きでなくてもいいから、家族みんなが安らげる空間で。そんなに贅沢もできないけど、日曜日はどこかに出かけたり、他の友達と自分たちの子供の自慢をし合って、でもやっぱり自分の子が最高だって勝手に喜んで。 一緒に年をとって、子供たちの成長する姿を見ながら、肩を並べて、日向ぼっこをして、昔のことを懐かしく思い出して、だけど、今は一番幸せだって言い合って。
It sounded completely ordinary. Nothing glamorous about it. Just a simple life. But in reality, that alone was more than enough. Always spending your days together with the one you love, never asking for anything more.
十和田さん。
でも、それは、匠くんに生き方を変えろってことじゃない。彼に夢を諦めろってことじゃない。そんな残酷なこと、あなたは言えるの？私は言えなかった。言えるわけがなかった。だって私、怖かったから。
And that, again, is the source of your downfall right here. No matter how you try to frame it, at the end of the day, you could not be honest with him about how you really felt. And he picked up on it, and it ate away at him. Really, at the end, really, as far as I'm concerned, at the end of the day, the one person who's truly at fault for your life turning out the way it did was you, Towada.
自分の幸せを求める彼にそう言って、お互いの道が違うってことを知られて、捨てられるのが怖かったのよ。
Then, Towada-san collapsed on the spot, crying her eyes out, with her face down on the tatami floor. Through caring for him and understanding him, she realized they held different values. Then, she was finally able to see it. The collapse of their future. But even so, she loved him too much to accept that and let him go. Which is why she chose the path to hell. In the face of her unthinkable sorrow and despair, there was nothing left for any of us to say. Just then.
ねえ、十和田。そんなに言うんなら、死んだ人間に聞いてみればいいじゃないか。忘れたのかい？ここは死者の住む村さ。ここでなら、死んだ人間と話すことくらいわけないよ。
Sonozaki-san stepped in front of us while we were all still in shock, knelt down next to Kurosawa, and put a hand on his forehead.
本当に、あんたの思っている通りだったのか。それを本人の口から直接確かめればいいさ。
I can't wait to see what magic trick she's gonna pull out of her sleeve with this. We all watched Sonozaki-san, half doubting. No, completely doubting what she said. Is something like that truly possible? It couldn't be a joke. Sonozaki-san wouldn't say something like that at a time like this. In which case, perhaps... The next moment, we were too shocked for words.
やえ。
I had no idea what was happening. It was beyond understanding. But even though Kurosawa was dead, I'm certain I could hear his voice.
なんだよそれ。
匠くん。
This was the first time I'd heard Kurosawa's voice. But it was familiar to Towada-san. She could tell after hearing only a single word.
やえ。ごめんな。 お前のことを、俺、すっげえ苦しめてたんだな。本当に、すまなかった。
何？どういうこと？
Looking closer, Kurosawa's lips weren't moving. I didn't know where the voice was coming from, but it sounded like the voice was coming directly from inside my head.
今さらこんなこと言っても信じてもらえないかもしれない。でも、俺、本当に自分が嫌だった。お前に当たり散らしたりするたびに、自分のことを醜くて、卑怯で、最低のやつだって思った。なんでこんなことしちまうんだろうって、いっつも悔しくて、情けなかった。
何よ、これ。
Towada stared at Kurosawa, dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it, but I couldn't shut my ears. Not at a time like this.
カッとなるとすぐお前に暴力を振るってしまう。そんな自分が嫌で嫌でたまらなくて、ずっと自分を変えたかった。お前のそばにいるために、俺は最善の努力をしようと何度も誓った。でも、誓っても誓っても、嫌なことがあるたびに、すぐにその誓いを破ってしまう自分が、どうしようもなく惨めで、俺が死ぬほど殴りたかったのは、八重俺自身だったんだ。
匠くん、何言ってるの
Towada passionately gazed at Kurosawa's corpse. Though Kurosawa's corpse didn't stir, I could clearly hear his voice.
俺さ、お前に見限られるのが怖かった。気づいてたよ。お前が普通の幸せを求めているってことは。でも、今さら俺にそんな生き方ができるかどうかわからなかったから。そんな俺だから、いつ捨てられても仕方ないって、本気で怖かった。だから、お前がドライブに誘ってくれたとき、俺は死ぬほど嬉しかったよ。まだ、お前が俺のことを好きでいてくれてる。諦めないでいてくれてるって知って。
嘘でしょ。何これ。何なの。いたずらならやめてよ。やめてよ。
Towada incoherently muttered to herself while staring at Kurosawa's corpse. Like she couldn't even see the rest of us.
このドライブで、俺、お前に報告したいことがあったんだ。もう、夢は諦めるって。いつか約束しただろ。夢とお前とどっちか選ばなくちゃいけないことになったとき、俺はお前を選ぶって。約束、果たそうと思って。だから、俺、
匠くん？
大変な状況ってのがどんなのかよくわかんねえけど、もしも音楽か八重かを選べって言われたら、俺は間違いなく八重を選ぶよ。
本当に？
当然だろ。音楽はなくても生きていけるけど、八重のいない生活は正直想像したくもないからさ。
I remembered clearly. But even though I heard him say it, I still only half trusted his words. Because something like that seemed absolutely impossible. He loved his music more than anything else. He cherished it since before I met him, so there was no way he would ever choose to throw it away. So, I arbitrarily gave up. I couldn't believe that he loved me enough to give that up. I simply couldn't believe that he truly meant those words from so long ago that I wanted to hear the most.
バイトじゃなくて、ちゃんとした会社に勤めようと思って。それで、音楽は一切やめて、プロになる夢は諦めて、就職活動してたんだ。でも、うまくいかなくて。大学出てずっと一度も就職したことなかったんだから、しょうがないよな。毎日面接官に鼻であしらわれたり、ひどいこと言われたりして断られ続けて、それが苦しくて、またお前に当たったりして。
He was job hunting that entire time.
悪かったよ。
He was job hunting that entire time and you didn't even notice? What the actual hell? How painful. How humiliating. For someone praised so much by others, it must have torn him to pieces. Well, I guess that would definitely explain his outburst. I understand. I understand because I knew him that well. But he was actively trying to choose me, despite the shame it put him through. He chose this gloomy, worthless, contemptible woman who didn't even believe in him to the bitter end.
嘘だ。嘘だ、嘘だ。嘘だ。そんなの信じない。私はもう信じないって決めたんだ。
I wanted to believe, but I don't. Not after all the pain he put me through. Not after I struggled, worried, and worried more. Until I finally resolved myself to put an end to it all. So there was no way. I'll believe this was the result. As I kept shouting inside my heart, I forcibly dug through my memories of betrayal, doing what I could to support a heart on the verge of collapse. But even so, all of that was brushed aside as a vision of his smile floated inside my head. And then...
八重、お前のことが好きだった。辛い目に遭わせてごめんな。俺と一緒にいたこと、どうか後悔しないでほしい。そんなこと言えないよな。ごめん。でも、これだけは言わせてくれ。俺は、お前に会えてよかった。お前と一緒にいられたから、頑張ることができた。夢を追い続けていられた。なのに、そんな優しいお前に、人殺しなんかさせてごめんな。だから俺、お前にはその分、これからは幸せになってほしいって、本気で思ってる。俺みたいなのじゃなく、もっとちゃんとしたやつと一緒になって、お前の本当に望んだ幸せを手に入れてくれ。
何言ってるの？何なのよ？何なのよこれは！大体死人が喋るわけないじゃない！いい加減にしてよ
Towada-san was upset. Her eyes wandered and her breathing was erratic. But just then, Sonozaki-san reached for Kurosawa's corpse. She pulled a single envelope out of his back pocket and handed it to Towada-san. And how did you know that was there?
Towada.
It was a letter of acceptance from business.
匠くん、本当に就職するつもりだったの？
八重、ごめんな。お前にこんなことをさせる前にこれを見せたかった。そして
そんな。
お前のことがずっと好きだった。優しさが嬉しかった。微笑みが可愛かった。もっとお前の笑顔、愛 たかったな。ガキとか作って、もっと幸せそうなお前の笑顔を見たかった。いろんな約束、全然守れなかったな。今まで一緒にいてくれて、俺はお前と会えて本当に幸せだったよ。
Towada-san fell down on her face, clinging to Kurosawa and crying. The sorrowful cry of her voice sounded like her heart had been torn apart.
どうしてたくみくん、たくみくん、どうして死んじゃったの？もう一度起きてよ。謝るから、私謝るから。私が悪かったってちゃんとあなたに謝らせてよ。
あんたが殺したんだろ？そうじゃなかったのかい？
たくみくん、ごめんなさい。どうしてこんなことに。なんで私あなたにちゃんとごめんなさい。ごめんなさい。
Overflowing with tears of regret. It was too late. It was too late for everything. If I had acted sooner, if I had the courage to tell him how I really felt, this future could have been avoided. My own assumptions cost me everything. I was wrong about everything. And then, for a while longer, all the rest of us could do was watch silently as she nursed her painful regrets. Lord. Well, that was quite the story, not gonna lie. Pretty depressing. Tragic. And honestly, I think Miyuki and Mion were pretty good at succinctly explaining my own feelings on the matter regarding Towada's role in this whole affair. Just like they were with Obote. Yeah, clearly in this situation, I'm both Miyuki and Mion. But in all due seriousness, I don't really think there's anything more I can really say other than what I've already said and what's already been said towards the end here with the narration. Other than, yeah, this was just a completely avoidable tragedy, and just sucks that it happened, but it did, and well, here we are. I guess thinking about the entire thing, I would say that neither Kurosawa nor Towada were completely spotless in their behavior leading up to this. They were both at fault for different things. Similar things to each other, mainly relating to how they couldn't be honest with one another about things they really need to be honest with each other about, whether it be their feelings, things that they were trying to do in order to support one another, etc. But I wouldn't go as far as I wouldn't say that neither of them were bad people. Well, neither of them are bad people. at heart. Just ordinary people that were pushed to do, that were just emotionally pushed to do horrible things. I think I will go ahead and cut things off here. I think just having, even though this will make this episode a bit on the shorter side too, I think having this whole episode dedicated to Towada, just like how in the last one it was more or less ended up being dedicated to Obote and his story, I think it would be fitting. It would work better to just have it done this way, and I guess. And then I guess for next time we're going to deal with, well, whatever the hell is happening at 4 a.m. So we've heard Otobe's story, and now Towada and Kurosawa's. I guess the only people we've really have yet to hear anything out from, excuse me, I thought I heard something for a second, is Miyuki and Mion. So I'm going to assume that if this episode and the last episode is any sort of indication for what's likely to follow, then maybe next episode we'll finally get to hear one of these two ladies explain themselves and, well, what truly brought them here to Hinamizawa. Whatever the case may end up being, I am most certainly interested to see how this will play out, for sure. But all that being said, I hope you guys who tuned into this episode have enjoyed it. If you did, and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Take care.